You remember, of course, how Graham Linehan, this Irish comedian now living in America, was arrested by some police at Heathrow Airport wielding machine guns over his remarks he made on X, on Twitter. It prompted a huge row here in the UK and in the States about the issue here. But why can't you say what you like on Twitter, particularly if you're an Irish person living in America being arrested here? Well, this moment we can break the news on GBNews that the police have dropped the probe into Mr Linehan over these 3 gender-critical tweets. In an email to Graham Linehan's lawyers this morning, a detective wrote this: "I'm writing to inform you that following a review of the evidence by the CPS, it's been determined that no further action will be taken in this matter. This means that no charges will be brought against Graham Linehan in relation to this allegation. Please note this decision may be reconsidered if further evidence or information comes to light." Now, that comes after last week Western magistrates ordered that all of Ms Linehan's bail conditions should be dropped after an application by the Free Speech Union lawyers, that campaign group. And just finally, from Graham Linehan, we have a comment here from him to GB News. They say this: "The police informed his lawyers that he faced no further action. After a hearing to get his bail conditions lifted, the CBS have dropped the case. With the aid of the Free Speech Union," he says, "he still aims to hold the police accountable for what is only the latest attempt to silence and suppress gender-critical voices on behalf of dangerous and disturbed men," he says. So very, very big news there, because that cut right to the top of the American administration. Graham Linehan, the charges against him will not go any further.
This is a case that went around the world and back, and J.D. Vance has been very outspoken about the death of free speech as he sees it in the United Kingdom. The notion that anybody saying anything unsavoury in the eyes of the British authorities, the British police, the British government on American soil could come back and get this kind of treatment, to be greeted by armed police officers for a tweet, was simply shameful and ridiculous, many people felt. And are we finally, do you think, is the government finally getting the message, Chris Sober, about they should be policing the streets and not tweets? This is a huge breakthrough for Graham Linehan and for free speech. And may I say as well, the Free Speech Union, they're on a complete roll.
Well, they are. It's not the government, of course. The CPS and the police are separate to that, and charging choices are made separate to the government. But no question, it does seem to reset where we are with free speech. Free speech is set often by courts. In the public opinion, it seems here that it's a real win for free speech.
That's a huge story. Let's get on to that one we just mentioned there. Nick Timothy, this redefinition of Islamophobia. Talking about free speech, a lot of people feel that this has been a sinister clampdown on free speech to give special dispensation and protection.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just live in credit. Whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward, and that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
Well, it is a victory, but the process is the punishment. And I think there are very serious questions for the Metropolitan Police now, and I think we must ask them, and they must be held to account. And I think the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, needs to look into this. And if she won't, then I hope the Constitution works and her shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, looks into this and demands answers for why the police were abused in this way, why bail conditions, which from the very beginning looked to me to be absolutely draconic and ridiculous, had to be challenged in court. But I don't know if your listeners or viewers know this, Martin, but when Graham Linehan had to take the police to court in order to get out of these ridiculous bail conditions, they didn't even fight it. They didn't even turn up. So they must have known that the conditions were draconic and abusive. And the Met has to really ask itself what it has become. I think we have to ask ourselves what each of our police forces has become. Every single one of them seems to have a brainwashed chief constable who just spouts woke mantras and doesn't seem to be terribly interested in basic policing, and is much more interested in thought policing and controlling ideas and arresting people for wrongthink. And I think we really have to question what the College of Policing has done, where these people have come from, and whether we just go back to an old style recruitment method of working their way up from the beat, which seemed to ensure that we got common sense, respectable chief constables. I mean, I struggle now to find a chief constable I actively respect. I think the Chief Constable of the Metropolitan Police is a complete and utter disgrace and should have resigned over any of the many scandals which have plagued him. But this is yet another abuse of power by the police.
Stephen Barrett, we continually ask ourselves the question, is this the end of this madness? But it never seems to end. Harry Miller took the Royal College of Policing to the Royal Court of Justice over non-crime hate incidents. They were meant to be dropped. That didn't happen. The Supreme Court ruled that a biological woman was a biological woman and not a man who pretended to be a woman. That should have been the end of that. It wasn't. Graham Linehan got arrested because of challenging what was already deemed to be British law. Will this ever end?
Not until we rip DEI out of the system. At the moment, everybody's self-interest. If you want power in this country, if you want wealth in this country, if you want success in this country, if you need bells, whistles, or just a house to live in, then you will comply with DEI. Promotion in the police is linked to DEI. Promotion in my profession, from barrister to KC, is linked to DEI. Promotion from my profession, from barrister to judge, is linked to DEI. Self-interest and the access to power is all now thoroughly dependent on DEI. In many ways, I mean, I'm the least hippie-ish rebel the world could have possibly imagined. I'm an extremely bookish, rule-abiding chap, but my rejection of DEI means that I must become an other person. I must be outed. I must be, cast into the utter darkness. And that's not because and I shouldn't even have to say this, but obviously I'm not racist. Just because you reject DEI doesn't make you a racist. But we have structurally built this system, and everybody, humans, one of the reasons to not be racist, by the way, is that humans are generally all awful unless they learn how to be good or to become kind. So there is no good or bad based on skin color. That's obviously stupid. But humans are largely self-interested. And so if you build a system of self-interest, there will be zealots who do believe in DEI, but they will be a tiny proportion of the population. Most people will just be going along with this because it's in their interest so to do. They either want the promotion, they don't want to lose the job, they don't want to cause hassle, they don't want to get dragged before HR. And that's what's going on. When the police do this, they're acting like the militant enforcers of DEI. They are politicized police. They are effectively a Stasi. They are enforcing the main, the official political narrative, which is that you will support DEI, which says that you have to lie and say that men can become women when they can't. Graham Linehan will not lie, and therefore he must be crushed. The state must crush him in some way. And anybody who will not lie, it's just like Big Brother. If you will not lie and say that you love Big Brother, you must go to room 101 until you will give in. And that's what we're going on. We have built an awful socialist country. It's nasty. It's incompetent. It doesn't work. It's going bankrupt. Could we please rip all these laws out, restore democracy, and go back to the old ways? It was much nicer then.
Well, Stephen Barrett, that was going to be my next question. We've seen over the other side of the pond, we've got Donald Trump, we've got J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance has been terribly concerned about the state of free speech all across Europe, but in particular in the United Kingdom. This case, of course, caught his eye. And we're a laughingstock in America when we hear about people like Lucy Connolly going to jail over an offensive tweet. Yeah, it was offensive, but it was just an opinion and quickly deleted. Graham Linehan having 5 coppers with machine guns turning up when it'd be a miracle to see a single copper if you got your car nicked or your house broken into. The point is, people feel this has gone too far. Is the only way now to overcome this a complete and utter change of political regime in the United Kingdom?
Yes, you effectively need to do two things, really. You need to fundamentally restructure your laws, because a lot of this is written into laws. We're a socialist state by law. And by the way, Churchill always said that no socialist state can exist without a political police force enforcing its will. So the fact that we got a socialist state was always going to lead to a political police force. They're all linked together. They're natural causes of each other. But you have to rip out and fundamentally restore a functioning liberty-based legal system, which we had with the common law, and we can easily get back to. It's not simplistic. It will require a lot of technical legal work, but it can be done without killing the country. You know, you don't want to delete the law against murder. Or that would be a nasty weekend. But, you know, you can get rid of an awful lot of other types of laws. You need to do that. And then culturally, we all need to accept. We need to culturally value things like we're a free country. And you've got a right to say that. I don't agree with you. That's absolutely fine. We need to go back to the loser shaking the winner's hand at the end of a sports match or race. All of this needs to culturally come back.
Stephen Barrett, I want to quickly ask you, if I could, about Nick Timothy MP earlier on in Parliament was imploring the government to drop their redefinition of Islamophobia. I know we've spoken about this before. I wanted to get your take on that. Here we are today. We're finally seeming to reach a high watermark of the trans insanity, people being arrested for tweets. That's being dropped. Are you gravely concerned about a reintroduction, a redefinition of Islamophobia, particularly at the moment? Do we really need to be giving certain communities more protection from the law when they seem to be becoming even more emboldened in public life?
No, we certainly don't need blasphemy laws for any of our religions. And what's missed with the Islamism problem we have and the terrorism problem is all of the absolute mainstream Muslims. So I've mentored young people from poor backgrounds across Britain, and that's from almost everywhere geographically in England and Wales, and every type of group. And I can tell you, everybody's got mainstream kids who will succeed and do integrate and will do well. So although we have a problem with Islamist terrorism, particularly targeting our Jewish community at the moment, you know, mainstream Muslims do exist and are here in Britain. We obviously don't need to protect them from blasphemy. Okay, they just don't need it. They're lovely people. They're already protected. You know, I can think of a friend who's currently chair of my local council. You know, he doesn't need special protection from blasphemy laws. That's complete nonsense. Nobody does, and they will just be used again by a political police force to enforce wrongthing. Look at it. It's not a joke now. Two-tier policing is real. They only police thoughts and thinking and ideas. And Churchill said that's what these authoritarians always do, and that's exactly what they're doing. I've said this countless times to you, Martin, but look at the pathetic sentences for paedophiles. Look at them. Admit that we basically let paedophiles off in this country. And that is absolutely sickening. It is maddening. It's what a socialistic state creates. We are socialism. It came on us slowly, and it kept lying and saying it wasn't. I'm definitely not socialism, but it is. And it's what President Trump's called nasty and incompetent.